First and foremost, it is an honor and a privilege to be speaking in front of you today. I find myself among brothers and sisters. And I truly apologize for being very late. We had a very busy schedule. You cannot believe that we started literally at 10 a.m. and since 10 a.m. we have been stopped. Even now, I didn't even get an opportunity to rush back to my hotel and change and look as smart as Diego, you know. Yes, you're smart as well. Okay. Oh yes, I forgot. Good Lord.
Let me get it.
Oh yes, yes, I get it now, I get it. So we really apologize for being late.
Então, queria desculpar por estar atrasado. Ele se encontra aqui perto de irmãos e irmãs, o que ele falou. Está muito honrado de estar aqui. E que a rotina, né, de hoje, a agenda dele foi cheia e foi muito complicado, mas agora a gente está aqui para poder fazer esse encontro aqui.
If maybe you allow me, I think it won't be... I don't feel comfortable sitting, if I can stand, if it's okay.
Sim, a gente diz que prefere fazer em pé, que é melhor para ele, se sente mais confortável.
But this is not to say you must stand up, you must all remain seated. The work that we are engaged on is the work that our forefathers, the past generation, our forefathers and our foremothers have been engaged on.
O trabalho que ele está engajado é um trabalho de que os antepassados e antepassadas dele já estavam engajados.
The fight has been waged since time immemorial. It has been a fight against slavery. It has been a fight against colonialism. It has been a fight against apartheid.
A luta que tem sido travada é uma luta de tempos imemoriais, uma luta contra a escravidão, é uma luta contra o colonialismo e é uma luta contra o apartheid.
The work that we're doing as social activists, human rights activists, and peace activists, it is to build upon the foundation that our forefathers have laid for us.
O trabalho que eles estão tendo como ativistas sociais, ativistas pela paz e os direitos humanos, é uma luta que os antepassados deles já partiram para construir.
It is unfortunate that today, more than 100 years since the end of slavery, more than 50 years since the end of colonialism in Africa and different parts of the world, more than 50 years since the end of apartheid in South Africa, that today we are still fighting against the same systems that our forefathers and foremothers were fighting against.
É um infortúnio que mesmo depois de anos do fim da escravidão, do fim do colonialismo e do fim do apartheid, que a luta ainda seja contra os sistemas que estão postos e que não permitem uma ascensão do povo que começou com os antepassados.
Our fight today, though it might have changed and differed slightly with the struggles of our foremothers and our forefathers, it is a fight against discrimination. It is a fight against racism. It is a fight for a more inclusive and a more equal world. It is a fight in defense of human rights that our forefathers and foremothers fought for, human rights and limited freedoms that we are enjoying today.
A luta pode ter mudado um pouco e ser feita de maneira diferente, mas continua sendo uma luta para acabar com o racismo e acabar com todos os sistemas que ainda não que ainda geram opressões e que começou com os antepassados e que agora é hora de a nova geração partir em frente.
It is for that reason that we are actively engaged in global activism, mobilizing disadvantaged and oppressed people around the world, in different parts of the world, the oppressed and marginalized people here in Brazil, the oppressed and marginalized people in different parts of the African continent, in different parts of South and Latin America. It is for that reason, because the fight, this is the fight and this is the struggle of centuries.
Essa é uma luta que daí vai incluir pessoas da África, e vai incluir a América do Sul, e vai incluir a América Latina, as pessoas oprimidas ao redor do mundo. É uma luta contínua.
Imagine if the oppressed people of different parts of the world, the oppressed people here in Brazil, in Guinea-Bissau, in Angola, in Mozambique, in Sudan, in South Africa, and in different parts of the Latin and South America would band and come together. Imagine the kind of things that we can be able to achieve together.
Imagine a força que teria um movimento, imagine o que seria conquistado quando as pessoas de todos esses lugares de países africanos, na América do Sul, América Latina, se unissem e fizessem um movimento juntos.
It was the unity of our forefathers and foremothers that defeated slavery. It was the unity of our forefathers and foremothers that defeated colonialism. It was the unity of our forefathers and foremothers that defeated apartheid. You'd remember, if you are members of Brazil, there were slogans that were chanted in the streets, in the favelas. And those struggles might sound similar to many of you today. There were many who were in the favelas, oppressed as they were, but they still found it necessary to shout, "Free Mandela." It was because of the unity of different oppressed people in different parts of the world that resulted to the freedoms that we are enjoying, that South Africa is enjoying today.
Essa luta, né, contra o racismo, apartheid, a partir das gerações que vieram antes, e ele diz que no Brasil se ouvia o grito vindo das favelas de libertem o Mandela, né? E de que a luta, imagine se essa luta vem de todos os povos oprimidos e como seria o resultado de um movimento junto.
The global activism we are engaged on is one that is calling for a united front, the unity of all oppressed groupings in different parts of the world. The activism we engaged on today is one that is calling for us to build bridges between our communities, exchange strategies and tactics in which we can continue the struggle.
As atividades das quais eles estão engajados é uma que é para unir as pessoas e criar pontes entre todos esses grupos que são marginalizados e que a gente possa trocar conhecimento e trocar estratégias para fazer os nossos objetivos e seguir em frente.
Build bridges that are going to enable us to collectively mobilize our resources, our knowledge and our strength as we endeavor to create more inclusive and sustainable communities.
Criar pontes que gerem trocas de saberes, trocas de conhecimento para que as nossas comunidades sejam mais inclusivas, mais sustentáveis.
Build bridges that are going to enable us to connect our institutions of higher learning, institutions such as these, connect them to institutions in South Africa, to institutions in different parts of the African continent that will enable us to collectively exchange knowledge and ideas on how best to create sustainable communities and move our communities forward, and how best we can bridge the inequality gap.
Construir pontes para que instituições daqui do Brasil, instituições da África do Sul, instituições do mundo todo possam trocar conhecimento e assim levantar as nossas comunidades, fazerem as comunidades surgirem com novas ideias e com novas formas de combater essa opressão.
South Africa and Brazil in the inequality index are considered one of the most unequal countries in the world.
A África do Sul e o Brasil, de acordo com o índice de inequalidade, são os dois países mais desiguais do mundo.
The affirmative action policies have proven to be more ineffective in battling and addressing the problem of inequality, discrimination, and social injustices here in Brazil and in South Africa as well.
As ações afirmativas foram até agora ineficazes de combater esse distanciamento, né, essa diferença, tanto no Brasil quanto na África do Sul.
That speaks into the disjuncture and disunity and an inability to tap into what is common between Brazil and South Africa. If we can identify that Brazil and South Africa are the most unequal countries in the world, and considering the similarities between the history of the people of Brazil and the history of the people in South Africa, and the plight that the marginalized and oppressed black people are experiencing here in Brazil and in South Africa, what then is stopping these two communities to build bridges between each other as they continue to push forward for a more inclusive, democratic, and developed and sustainable communities?
Esses dados mostram que tanto as comunidades no Brasil quanto na África do Sul, que possuem semelhanças, mostram que ainda falta construção de pontes e construção de que essas comunidades sejam mais próximas para poderem saber por que ainda existem esses empecilhos, né, tanto para a comunidade no nosso país quanto no outro.
What is preventing institutions of higher learning such as this to build bridges and exchange knowledge and ideas with institutions in different parts of the African continent? I am of the view that when you tap into that connection, into that link between this institution and other institutions of higher learning in South Africa and in the rest of the African continent, there is so much that we can do if we band together and if we unite together as institutions of higher learning.
Sendo possível, então, fazer uma ponte entre as instituições daqui, uma ponte entre instituições na África do Sul e no continente africano todo, é possível que essas comunidades se tornem mais fortes através dessa troca.
I used to be a university lecturer at Nelson Mandela University, and I have noticed the lack of linkages and connection between institutions in South Africa and the rest of the African continent. And more recently, I was teaching at St. John's University in Minnesota in the United States. And again, I saw a lack of connection and network between institutions of higher learning.
Ele costumava dar aulas na Universidade Mandela, University Nelson Mandela, Universidade Nelson Mandela na África do Sul, e percebia como havia uma falta de conexão lá com outras instituições na África, no continente africano. Ele estava na Universidade de Minnesota também e percebeu também que existe ainda essa falta de comunicação.
Universities are designed and they are supposed to be the microcosm of society or the center of society.
A universidade é para servir como se fosse um macrocosmo da sociedade, para refletir a sociedade de um modo geral.
But unfortunately, what we're observing is the failure and inability of institutions of higher learning to tap into what their potential is, to be the battleground of ideas.
Mas o que se vê é que essas instituições, principalmente instituições de ensino superior, elas estão falhando de se tornar um campo onde o embate de ideias, um embate saudável de ideias esteja ocorrendo.
That is why today I would also argue that if we can build bridges between institutions of higher learning here, between these institutions and other institutions in the African continent, in South Africa, you can start in South Africa, I will be that league. There is so much that we can achieve together as institutions of higher learning. The ideas on how best to develop and how best to move forward our society and our communities and our countries ought to begin here at the center of society, which is the institutions of higher learning.
E ele acredita que é através construindo essas pontes e abrindo portas de comunicação entre essas instituições nos mais variados lugares do mundo, é possível levar conhecimento adiante.
That is why the likes of Horace Mann, 1838, posit that education then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the greatest equalizer of the condition of man.
Okay, let's do Horace Mann.
Horace Mann, yes.
Em 1838?
1838.
Então é por isso que Horace Mann, em 1838, the phrase was, sorry? That's a lot to take.
I was challenging him. He was telling me that he was a historian. I studied history, so I used to memorize a lot of dates and a lot of words. So I was challenging him to see if he can remember.
Ele estava me desafiando porque eu sou historiador, eu falei com ele antes e ele me desafiou para saber se que ele também estudava história e se memorizava as datas boas.
Education then, beyond all other devices of human origin.
A educação, então, além de todas as outras ferramentas do ser humano,
is the greatest equalizer of the condition of man.
É o grande equalizador da condição da vida do ser humano.
Nelson Mandela sets forth a broader purpose of education.
Nelson Mandela,
sets forth a broader purpose of education.
Trouxe à frente o pleito da educação das pessoas.
As the greatest weapon we can use to change the world.
Como se fosse a maior arma de mudança no mundo.
So institutions such as these are supposed to be that agent or weapon of change.
Então instituições como essa aqui são para servirem como armas de mudança e de mudança para o futuro.
So I am challenging this institution to begin taking seriously what its purpose is.
Então está desafiando essa instituição a considerar realmente que é importante essa conexão.
And that is to be the engine that drives social change, that drives change in the community here in Brazil and in the broader global community.
E se tornar um motor de mudança tanto no Brasil quanto numa comunidade global.
The motto of the university that I come from,
o lema da universidade de onde ele vem,
and that is Nelson Mandela University,
que é a Universidade Nelson Mandela,
it says be the change.
Diz seja você a mudança.
I hope I'm that change in front of you today.
Espero ter mudado alguma coisa na frente de você.
Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado.